Can you translate that?
OK ブッシュは石油ばっか追っかけてるバカ野郎だと書いてあると読めと今言われましたけども。
Can we have a next slide, please?
次のスライドに行ってもらえますか。
This is San Francisco.
これはサンフランシスコです。
And it's a very typical a scene in San Francisco, even up to yesterday.
典型的なサンフランシスコの風景ってことなんですけども、今でもこんな感じだと。
And it's two things that San Francisco are always trying to get rid of are the homeless and graffiti, it seems like, for the last... we could go to the next slide. This is a really... this is UB40. He used to do graffiti in San Francisco in the early 80s. He's a Panamanian kid that lived in San Francisco. Panamanian. And he was really into this band, UB40. And, his graffiti was everywhere, like all through the 80s. And I had a friend who was taking apart his car door on his Volkswagen, and inside the door was a UB40 tag. This was about 2 months ago. This is my favorite thing about graffiti. It just it lands overnight in cities everywhere, and well, within the graffiti community, it travels quickly when people come into town. But this is basic tagging. It's just like there's all these rules in graffiti, but it's done like in 5 seconds or 5 or 6 seconds. Impossible to stop. Please.
サンフランシスコの子供たちは何歳ぐらいからグラフィティを始めるんですか？
In San Francisco, how old the kids start to do graffiti?
How old?
Yeah.
I think like 12 or 13 maybe.
12歳とか13歳ぐらいからグラフィティを始める。
How about here? How old do they start here?
東京だったら何歳ぐらいの子がみんな始めたりしますか？
20s? Anybody? 30s?
30歳とか。
Late 40s. Late 40s is a good time.
40代後半とかいい時期なんでグラフィティ始める。
Okay, we could go through these slides. I have a lot of them. I'm sorry.
じゃあ次行きます。
There's a common stereotype in America. Common stereotype that all crime and graffiti is done by blacks or Hispanics, but throughout my short career, it's mostly been white middle class kids doing most of the graffiti that I've met. And there's a common myth in America that it's gang related and whatnot, but. Gangs do graffiti, but it's mainly, to my experience, mostly just like white middle class kids. Okay, we can go through the next slide.
次のスライドに行ってください。
This is in. Someone help me. Germany. This is in Germany. This is in Denmark. And when graffiti started dying out in the States in the 90s, not dying out, but going through its slower periods, it really took off in Europe and all over the globe, other countries, and in Europe the kids will hijack pull the emergency brakes on the trains and stop the trains for like 5 or 10 minutes and graffiti the train and hold the train drivers hostage to do graffiti. They wear night vision goggles.
あとは暗視ゴーグルを目につけて。
I'm just kidding. I'm not sure.
それは嘘だ。ちなみにこの絵はデンマークの。
Okay, we can go to the next slide.
じゃあ次お願いします。
This is called posturing.
Posturing?
Posturing.
これパストリーっていうもので。
What is that?
You do your graffiti and then you stand next to it and strike a pose and take a photo. Do they do this here? Do they do this in Japan?
これって日本でもみんな自分で描いたようで写真撮ったりしますかって
Yeah, they do.
They do. Same pose?
同じポーズですか
Maybe different.
This is Temp. Does anyone know who Temp is? He's a Los Angeles graffiti writer. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, his name is Temp from LA. And he did a lot of graffitis in the late 80s, early 90s, all on the freeways everywhere. And these are called throw-ups, the two letters right there.
こういうのはスロープって言って2つの文字を組み合わせて書いてる
These can go over tags
これがまあタギングになる
sometimes.
時々ね
Okay, next slide, please.
次お願いします
I like throw-ups. It's my favorite part of graffiti.
Throw up?
Throw-ups. That kind of. That's what the nickname for it is.
僕はゲロを吐くのが一番好きなんだけどグラフィティをするときに
No, I'm serious. I like these a lot. They're like the best.
本
The
当
best
に
part.
マジで僕はそれが大好きなんだ
You have like 3 minutes to show
3分間
show your style as fast as you can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is there any questions? I'm sorry. This is complex already. It's all boys doing this too. Mostly boys. It's like a team sport. Tackling each other. Yes.
80年代当時サンフランシスコには例えばニューヨークだとブロードウェイスタイルとかいろんなスタイルがあると思うんですけど、そういうスタイルっていうのはやっぱりエリアごとに違ったりしたんですか
Was there any like the San Francisco style in the 80s? There was like a Broadway style in New York. Is there any specific style? Depends on where you belong, like a different area.
San Francisco, maybe crackhead style.
サンフランシスコはクラックヘッドスタイルだよ
It has so many different people that come to it all the time and do graffiti, and so it's
From all
from all over, yeah.
サンフランシスコにもありとあらゆるところからいろんな人たちがこう集まってくる場所だったんでいろんなスタイル
Next slide.
次行ってくださいごめんね
Do you guys know this guy? These people have come to Japan. These people, and Japan reminds me of San Francisco a lot. A lot of people come through and leave their marks. And this is Bennett, MQ, and Ty. You'll see more slides of Ty. Ty passed away when he was 17 or 18, but Bennett and MQ keep his graffiti going for doing. Next slide, please.
次お願いします
Sugi Maroshav. Do you guys know who Krenz is? Krenz?
クレンズって知ってま
Krenz.
すか
He was from Los Angeles. Kids from Los Angeles would always come to San Francisco and destroy the city. And meanwhile, all the San Francisco artists or graffiti artists are doing pieces. At the time, most San Francisco graffiti artists were doing colorful pieces.
Uh-huh.
This is 88 or 89. And these guys would just come up and just do throw-ups over everything. It was just wipe out everything with throw-ups. And so that had a big influence on what people started doing next, and through the 90s. I see people yawning.
あくびしてる人が見えるよ
I'm sorry. I'm really into this stuff. Okay, next
ごめんね
slide.
すごい僕こういうの好きなんだ次お願いします
Next slide, please. This guy's in my crew.
Pardon?
This guy's in my crew.
Your crew?
Yeah, my crew. He's in. Yeah. he's a nut, man. I know the. Yeah. I don't. Next slide. Okay, this is New York, and to most adults, this wall probably will make them upset or piss them off, kind of. But to most 15-year-old kids living in New York, they'll be excited seeing walls like this, or superheroes, all these things floating around. And if you look in a lot of the slides, there's always some type of beer advertising above a lot of the stuff. Above it, there's always alcohol advertising in a lot of my slides. Okay, next slide, please. I'm sorry, this is taking forever. This is New York, and maybe the 95, and people stand on snow drifts and trucks to get up higher. And this wall was on Houston Street. In 95, it was kind of like a bohemian art area, but now it's just full-blown like this wall has a huge DKNY covering the whole entire wall. So. Does anyone know Louis? Louis BTM? This guy did a lot of graffiti in the loosen it. Yeah. He did a lot of graffiti in the 90s, late 90s. I never knew who he was. When I was in New York, I got arrested doing graffiti, some anti-Bush graffiti, during my wife's show. And I met Louis in jail. He was wearing a suit. Do you guys know Louis? This is Louis.
みんなルイを知ってる。これもルイなんですけど。
Okay, next slide, please.
次お願いします。
Do you guys know MQ? I like his graffiti a lot. He kind of pushes it to like unexpected levels, I guess. At this spot, one time it was just an MQ throw up about the size of the person there, and then like a week later it was like this big, like it got bigger. Next slide, please. This is Attic from San Francisco. He stood on the Bronco there. The whole idea with graffiti is to put it somewhere where it won't get taken down. Okay, next slide, please. This is Bennett in San Francisco. And this is like in the mid-90s sometime. I stopped doing graffiti a while ago. But to like any 17-year-old kid in San Francisco, this is what they have to do to keep up with graffiti now. This is like entry-level graffiti. This is what you have to do now. That's why I got out of it.
You're not going to do again?
Just do it indoors. It's much easier. Come on. Jesus. I'm scared of heights. Come on. I think how they do this with rollers, and they hang down from the tops of the building. As you can see, it's always near billboards and other advertising. And in a lot of cities, they are always trying to get rid of graffiti, but I always think like the worst graffiti is like the billboards, like the advertising. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. In San Francisco, a lot of the graffiti gets painted over on the streets, but on the trucks, it seems like it stays. The city hasn't figured out how to paint over personal property yet. Actually, they do. They do paint over. They fine you if you have graffiti on your building and don't paint over it. This is Attic.
Attic の
On the back is Trust.
後ろにある絵は Trust.
It's a T and an R, like the first two letters of first three letters. The whole.
TR って自分のそのネームの一番最初の2つのキャラクターを書いて
Or the whole name.
それを3つ使ったり全部使ったり
But these are all just throw-ups, like 5 minutes to do.
これはスローアップなんでもうほとんど5分ぐらいで書いてます。
Next slide, please. This is Ty. I told you before he died very young. He was climbing up a side of a building to get to a rooftop. And a ex-Vietnam like veteran.
Ex-veteran?
Yeah, Vietnam veteran. T to B on there, the letter T to B, top to bottom, and lots of other things, I'm sure. But it's like the crew people are associated with. Next slide. When graffiti was getting painted over a lot in San Francisco, people started painting backwards on the glass, like going inside the building and painting backwards on the glass. Next slide. This is in San Francisco on the freeways. There's rooftops that when people get stuck in traffic, and so obviously good places for people to paint. So. And corporations to advertise also on the top. So there's always this competition between corporate advertising and graffiti all the time. And the corporate advertisers usually win. They get removed and then they put their stuff on it. Okay, next slide. People go up on top of billboards and just get a little bit higher up off the ground. Harder to paint over. This is vegan and narc. Vegan and narc. This is Sect and Wanta. They're Japanese writers, I think, in San Francisco. This looks good. Okay, next slide. Do they know about scribing glass here? Does that happen here?
日本でも
Anybody? Does anyone do graffiti here?
Does now. Not very often.
Not very often.
あんまり頻繁ではないですけど
Next slide, please. I love this stuff. If there's one thing that made the public more upset than anything, it was probably glass etching. This drives cities crazy, this stuff. And it makes the graffiti writer very happy, these things. You have to replace the entire piece of glass for the ultimate graffiti. Wait, it gets better. Hold on, next slide. Gang graffiti. This is the best. There's no Mountain Dew ads with this yet. There's no Coca-Cola ads using this yet. Okay, next slide. I'm sorry. Gang graffiti. I like very much. It's not on MTV. Okay, next slide. Look at how tough it looks. This is a gang that lives close to where I live, I guess. It's Bryant Street.
Brown?
Yeah, 22nd and Bryant. Okay, next slide. I'm sorry. This is art school graffiti. In the early 90s, this was quite popular. This particular person used to go out and paint these dogs everywhere. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. This is a girl that used to paint these horses. Her name was Reminisce.
Reminisce?
Reminisce. Next slide. You think you're a hustler, you ain't shit. It's on. That's what it says.
お前は自分のことはハスラーかと思ってるんだだけどお前はそうじゃないぞっていうことが書いてあるんですけども
Art student.
これも美術学校の生徒が書いてます
Okay, next slide. This is how our buses look in San Francisco. Did they do this in Tokyo yet? Did they cover the trains with advertising yet here? I always thought if they were going to cover the bus with advertising, they would make it for free to ride or something, the corporation. But you still have to pay $1.75 and ride this crappy bus around. You'd think they would be serving free Pepsi on it or something. But these are the ones that people want to graffiti right away. Next slide, please. I was across the street and I just saw the KKK on this bus. Have you seen this?
No.
Soon. Next slide. Do you have these here, bus stop shelters, like these advertising on bus shelters? The advertiser spends millions of dollars to get the space, and one graffiti writer can come by and just deflate the whole ad campaign in a matter of seconds. It's our duty to do this. Okay, next slide, I'm sorry. There's someone in this room that gave me a key to these things.
Key?
Key to open these. There's a special key to open these. Underneath, there's like these little locks to open the advertising.
Uh-huh.
It's glass, it opens up. Eric Zoe, he gave it to me.
Okay.
He can get you the keys to these if you want the keys.
で彼らこの広告の看板開ける鍵を持ってるんでもし使いたいやつがいたら
Fifth and Harrison in San Francisco, you can get these.
50番街とハリソンの角のところのバス停の鍵を持ってるそうなんで
Or you can try drilling a hole
No, no, there's an easier way. You just take a piece of bubble gum and stick it in there, and you get the pattern of the key. And then you take it to the store. Okay, pull the corporate ad out.
そしたら広告、企業の広告を取り出して、
Paint over it, do whatever you want.
その上に好きなことを書き殴って、
Then put it back in, and then epoxy the bolts shut. You put glue in them.
そしたらその広告看板のところに自分の作品を戻したら、鍵穴にエポキシの接着剤をつけて開けられないようにすればいい。
It's your ad now.
No.
まあそうすればあなた自身の広告になるよ。
It's your duty as a citizen of Tokyo.
それが東京市民としての義務だと。
Hi.
Please be careful. Though. Take caution. Next slide, please.
次にお願いしま
I'm
す。
sorry. Okay, let's get back to graffiti. Do you know Cost and Revs? This is in the 90s in New York City. Cost and Revs. This was before street art was really popular. Can you steal Kinko's copies at Kinko's here? Can you do that? Okay. Next slide. I'm sorry. This is like 94. They're like two white kids. They would dress up as painters and just get up on the rooftop and just start rolling out their names. But this spot now has a big billboard over the whole. Okay, next slide. People are falling asleep everywhere around here. I looked at it. You know Shepard Fairey? He started this whole street art onslaught that you're seeing. But I like him. He still does it though. He still goes out and puts up a lot of stuff. He takes some risk, still. Next slide. Me and Josh did this when we were younger. Ladder.
Ladder.
I'm lying, it was a billboard that was there before. It's one of the first billboards they ever took down. Okay, next slide. This is what graffiti looked like in the 80s. But it's actually these two Brazilians in 1995. They were really into the 80s style. They used to make their own Adidas because they couldn't get them. Now they're sponsored by them. Can we have the next slide?
どんどん行っちゃってください。
Oh my God, please keep going. Go forward. Please go. Go away. Stop. Next carousel. Please. Please keep going.
どんどん行ってください。
Okay, stop. In America, we have freight trains.
Is it like a cargo train?
Yeah, like freight, like drugs they carry in them. Pharmaceutical drugs. I don't know what's in the cars.
Uh-huh.
Wheat.
Weed?
Wheat.
Weed?
Next slide. There's a lot of graffiti people that paint on trains. Next slide. There's a lot of tagging and then a lot of worker graffiti on the trains also. Up on the top is the internationally known Kilroy graffiti. It's really old graffiti. Next slide. This guy's like 65 years old. He has hundreds of thousands of these on trains. He's most up on the freight. The most up, like he has the most graffiti on the trains. Buzz Blur. Okay, next slide. This is El Troncon.
El Troncon.
El Troncon. I like this graffiti too because it hasn't been taken over by a corporate advertising firm. Sony hasn't used it yet for advertising. I keep looking for these things that are left in our world that aren't corrupted. Okay, next slide. Can you translate that? It says.
Okay. エビの漁船を待たないでくれ。なぜなら僕はカニを持って家に帰るから。
This is worker graffiti. Americans are notoriously lazy, They like to fuck around on the job. So on the trains you'll find a lot of graffiti by workers that are just... Okay, next slide please. Under the painted part it says, fuck Nixon, one of our great presidents from the 70s. And then on top of it, it says Reagan sucks, another one of our fine presidents. Next slide, please. I think they painted around this guy when he was sleeping. This is a very typical scene in San Francisco. Is there any other questions?
まだ質問ありますか？
関係ない質問なんですけど、なんで T シャツが裏なんですか？
Please.
Nothing to do with
It's okay.
this exhibition, but why are you wearing a T-shirt? Next side, yeah.
I've worn it for a week straight. I needed to.
Pardon?
I've worn it for a week straight. I needed to turn it around.
僕この T シャツを1週間連続で着てるんで逆にする必要がありました。
I'm very sorry.
ごめんね。
Is there any more great questions like that?
今みたいな素敵な質問は他にはありませんか？
Okay. This is my favorite piece of graffiti in San Francisco.
Okay.
This guy did it just one time, I think. I've only seen it one place. A can of orange and a can of white. One can of orange spray paint and one can of white. He did his graffiti and ran home and never did it again. The ultimate graffiti. Okay, next slide. Stop. Do you guys know Dave? This guy really upsets tough guy graffiti people. But he does it everywhere. He's really up. He's like the most. At one time, he was the most up in San Francisco. He had the most graffiti in San Francisco, and all the tough guy graffiti guys just could not handle it. And I think it's interesting when that happens. When it's just someone just comes out of nowhere and just.
僕はすごいそういうの面白いと思うんです。ある日突然誰かがどこかから現れて。
Just disrupts the whole system of.
もう自分のその作品でその街中埋め尽くしてしまって。
Yeah, it's important to have this.
僕はすごいそういうのって重要だと思ってます。
I just heard about him. Yeah, I haven't seen his stuff yet. So yeah, I want to see it. I want to check it out. Yeah, thank you. We'll come back. Yeah, okay.
普段どういう視点でグラフィティを捉えてるかっていうのがそのバリーさんの視点でいろいろ紹介されてたんで、そういった意味ではすごい良かったと思います。